Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm Huang. In this video, I'm going to break down for you the key lessons I've learned from each of the chapters of this famous book I'm pretty sure you've come across sometime somewhere, called The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck by Mark Manson. From the rebellious, edgy title of the book, it might appear that what this book is arguing is simply not giving a shit about what others think and just be yourself. But in fact, it's so much more than that. What do I mean? Well then, let's get started. So, what does it really mean to not give a fuck? On the one hand, it means knowing what our priorities are. In other words, what to and not to give a fuck about. On the other hand, it means to accept that, just like what I talked about in the last video, linked right over here, things are not always going to go as smoothly or according to plan as we like.
Where's the lamb sauce?
Come on, man.
Regarding the first meaning, one part of not giving a fuck is about knowing what truly matters to us and what is worth paying attention to. I put it like this: there is simply too much that's demanding for our attention these days. So it is only by figuring out our priorities that we're able to lessen the chaos of what we don't need in our life and focus on what's most important. For example, our family, relationships, and career. To accept alongside that is quite a Buddhist virtue. As Mark Manson describes in his book, it is to accept that maybe today I wouldn't wake up to sun shining on my face as I opened my bedroom window ready to kickstart my day. And it is to accept that anything that can possibly go wrong will go wrong. In other words, Murphy's Law. Despite that, however, I still manage to see how less of a deal it is in the long run, have a nice rest of my day, and not let whatever obstacle is in front of me stop me from going to where I want to go. A lot of us may think that the feeling of happiness is supposed to be purely satisfying, pleasurable, comfortable, and all these kinds of good feelings. Now, that is not entirely true. In Mark's words, happiness is sort of like an exchange. You're able to feel happiness, but you also have to carry out the sacrifices and anticipate the problems that come with them. Hence, the decisive factor for one's happiness can be said to be what problems one is willing to solve and what pain one is willing to withstand. And it is through the process of solving those problems that we're able to feel the happiness we desire. Nonetheless, this stretches to almost all areas of life, not just happiness. It's like what Buddha says: life itself is painful and filled with all kinds of problems waiting for you whether you like it or not. But we don't have to feel hopeless because of this. Just as Mark says, we only feel happiness when we solve problems. It's like a muscle that endures pain in order to grow. Without all the blood, sweat, and tears at the gym, resisting sugar while maintaining a healthy diet, we can never get in shape. In addition to this, one more important thing to learn is to enjoy the process. It's like what my coach says whenever things get hard. He says, to achieve your goal, don't just look at the results you want. Rather, focus on what you should do to reach your goal, which is the process itself. And step by step, when you do everything right, you'll eventually get there. Last year when I was in year 1, I took sociology as my minor. The more we studied and discussed this subject, the more we felt that our lives are more or less the same, albeit there are slight differences in background and personal experience. At the same time, there are also many things that we're just pretty damn average in. However, in today's world, we can see two kinds of people. One thinks that they're the best out of everyone else, and the other thinks that they're worse than everyone else. And both think that they're special and deserve special treatment. Essentially, we would describe these two kinds of people as entitled. Entitled people like to make themselves feel good the whole time. That's why they are selfish, egotistical, delusional, and actually have a low sense of self-worth. For us everyday people, with the help of social media these days, it's easy to think, wow, I wish I can do that. I wish I can have that. I wish I can be them. So sometimes instead of feeling more relaxed after scrolling through our feed, we end up feeling insecure, depressed, and generally bad about ourselves. Nevertheless, Mark reminds us the real kind of self-worth is to accept our mediocrity, weaknesses, and improve on them, whilst being satisfied with what we have, not feeling dissatisfied with what we don't have. In addition, out of the 8 billion people on this planet, there are definitely people who share the same struggles as you do. Hence, there's no need for you to feel lonely or sad that you cannot be special because you're just like anybody else. And instead of focusing on what we lack, we should focus on the things most of us already have, such as family, friends, and loved ones. They are the ones who we should care about and cherish, but sadly, many of us don't realize that. Talking about priorities, what may then easily come to mind is our values. They are who we are, what we do, and what we use to measure ourselves and others by, particularly when it comes to success and failure. It is only because of values that we can take what's happening around us and give them meaning. Without them, life would lose its meaning and we will feel lost and miserable. Nevertheless, not having any values would be just as bad as having bad values. The difference between good and bad values is, according to Manson, bad values are superstitious, uncontrollable, and obtained and depend on external factors such like pleasure, material goods, trying to be right and feel good the whole time. Good values, in contrast, are realistic and controllable. Some examples include virtue, honesty, and vulnerability. Therefore, when a world is already filled with uncertainty and surprises, the last thing we will want is to have values that are not within our control. When encountering difficulties, using good values to solve them creates a better, if not positive mindset and a calmer state of mind. Focusing on bad values means not only are we not able to solve them more rationally, but we will also end up hating ourselves for it. Even without problems though, values affect how we see ourselves and others, which influence our sense of self-worth. Dave Mustaine, the lead guitarist of the metal band Megadeth, is one of the examples of poor values brought up in the book. Despite achieving great fame and I'm sure financial wealth, Dave, at least in the early 2000s, cried in an interview that he still doesn't think that he's good enough compared to the band he was kicked out of, Metallica. Anyone who likes metal like me or has listened to his albums would totally disagree with him and think that he's fairly successful already. However, then, due to his shitty values, he couldn't see himself as successful as he actually is, which resulted in self-doubt and a poor quality of life decades later.
Get that finger right up your ass, you little
Mark also said it is by merely choosing the correct metrics to evaluate others and especially ourselves that we can get a gist of what self-improvement is really about. That is, in his words, prioritizing better values, choosing better things to give a fuck about, because when you give better fucks, you get better problems, and when you get better problems, you get a better life. Values are who we are, what we do, and the problems we solve. So if you want to live better, choose your values wisely. The rest of the chapters are about the 5 counterintuitive values one might think are hard to swallow, but are essential for our values, self-satisfaction, and well-being. In addition to the previous chapter about values, responsibility is one of its most important aspects. It is obtainable through self-control, realistic, and immediate. Nonetheless, as a lot of good values are, it is easy to say, but hard to do. To understand this value, first of all, we have to recognize that there are going to be problems in life which we chose to have. And there are also problems that show up right in front of our face without our intention. Either way, it doesn't matter if you chose the problem or not. You are responsible for it. That is, you are in control of what you think about it, how you react, and what meaning to give it. And that's because you have a choice. The choice to think, react, and contemplate. It's way too easy to say, nah, this has nothing to do with me, I have no idea what happened, and I can't do anything about it. Ultimately, the decision of not doing anything is a choice itself, and something that you just did. To not do anything is doing something. Instead of neglecting the problems in front of us and deciding not to care about them, we should know that even though this problem occurred without my intention, but now, what can I do about it? By dealing with problems responsibly, we will realize that we actually can do something about it, and the world may not be as cruel as we thought it is. Whilst we would feel powerful with a I can do this mindset, we can thus make better life choices and feel more fulfilled in our lives. Whether we are conscious about it or not, there are certain beliefs and values that we hold on to for terribly long periods of time, which may be potentially wrong. However, as stubborn and close-minded as we can be sometimes, not only do we think that we're right, but we would also think that others are wrong instead, and it's their fault for not understanding us.
Nobody understands me. Nobody even listens.
Regardless of whatever we hold on to is right or wrong, Mark argues, this type of thinking is dangerous and hinders our growth. It is the exact opposite thing to do if you want to gain knowledge and wisdom. To explain this in a simple way, I'll use a personal example. When I was in year 2, I used to mistake a mosquito for a fly and a fly for a mosquito. This was the stupid belief I held on to for I don't know how long, until one day in my local after-school program, I had a huge fight with a girl 2 years older than me about this. Imagine 2 primary school children arguing about what is a mosquito and what is a fly. It's quite funny, isn't it? In hindsight, this is absolutely ridiculous of me to confuse the two, and even had a big argument about it, but it's fine. Had I never accepted the correct definition for the words fly and mosquito, now I'm going to look far more stupid than I was more than a decade ago, especially as a university student.
Emotional damage!
Moreover, it's also through this experience that I learned what really is a fly and a mosquito. In other words, I gained one piece of knowledge and I grew. As humans, we should all be aware that our minds have great power in giving meaning to things and stick with the meanings for ages until we are willing to change it. And that thought we hold on to then shapes our perception of the world and how we see specific objects or people. What's more, the amazing thing is, over time, the more we hold on to this thought, the more we are going to perceive it as true. Despite that it might be false, because we're so convinced by ourselves that the thought must be true, it becomes an emotional blind spot in our brain that's easy to miss. Therefore, this is the exact reason why Mark says we need to let go of the idea that I'm right and everybody else is wrong, and start to think maybe I am the one who is wrong. Doing so, we wouldn't feel so angry like how I was, raging at the after-school and felt that the whole world is turning against me. On top of this, you can even say it's not even that the world is going against you. In fact, it's actually just you going against yourself and making a huge fuss out of it, as you are the one who thought that the world is your enemy and created a conflict between yourself and the world. You are the one who has the power to change how you feel and think, not anybody else. So next time, when you think that the whole world is not on your side, it's most likely that you're the one who has a problem, or more specifically, has an attitude to change.
Oh, fuck off you fat useless sack of fucking Yankee danky doodle shite.
Here then, it's worth noting that growth, as Mark puts it, is not a process of going from wrong to right. However, it is from wrong to less wrong, and then less wrong, and then less wrong. Hence, we don't necessarily need to find the right answer and be like, this must be right, this is it. Alternatively, we can explore the options that may guide us onto a more appropriate path, as well as a more positive mindset we can adopt to be less wrong than we were yesterday. And of course, what it means to be less wrong will change throughout the course of time. To put it differently, this can also be said as embracing uncertainty, be it in our beliefs, values, and or opinions. We can only grow and feel comfortable in knowing that we don't know when we acknowledge the fact that we might be wrong, and it's okay to be wrong and feel uncertain. That's why Socrates says, true knowledge exists knowing that you know nothing. At least that's what I think it means. I could be wrong. Here I just want to share with you the 3 fundamental questions Mark wrote in the book that you can ask yourself to be a bit less dogmatic. What if I'm wrong? What would it mean if I'm wrong? Would being wrong create a better or worse problem than my current problems for both myself and others? Doing this requires complete honesty in yourself and a detailed observation in your emotions and behaviors, even if it means to ask yourself tough questions. Beyond that, we need to admit we're wrong when we realize that we are wrong. It's not shameful, discouraging, or embarrassing, and it shouldn't be. I mean, how can you embarrass yourself in front of yourself? You should see it as the beginning of your growth and progress, and be happy that you're less wrong and better than you were the day before. We're not able to get good at anything if we're not able to withstand failure. As Mark says, improvement at anything is based on thousands of tiny failures, and the magnitude of your success is based on how many times you failed at something. A lot of us today only like to fantasize over our results without wanting to get our hands dirty to actually reach our goals. For the reason why some would say it's because they don't feel enough motivation to do something, or can't bear the potential pain they might feel during the process. Mark offered us something called the do something principle, which is action leads to motivation, which leads to inspiration, which generates more action, so on and so forth. Thus, in order to feel that motivation that so many of us are so eager to have, we just need to start. As for the pain, it's just part of the process that we need to tolerate if we wish to achieve what we want to achieve. So next time when you're feeling lost, paralyzed, or unmotivated, just remind yourself to do something. Anything will do, because when you begin, things will not appear to be so miserable. Now, of all the chapters in here, this one really echoes what not giving a fuck, as mentioned in the first chapter, is all about. Prioritizing what is important and what isn't, we're inherently choosing not only what to care about, but also what we say yes and no to. Prioritizing is about saying yes to the few essential things that we have in our life and letting go of the rest that is not really worth our time and energy. It is only by putting limits on ourselves and restricting our choices that we can be satisfied, find freedom and meaning in our life.
You're supposed to read this cartoon and being a sophisticated person say, what does this fish know? You know, nothing is possible in this fishbowl. Impoverished imagination, a myopic view of the world, and that's the way I read it at first. The more I thought about it, however, the more I came to the view that this fish knows something. Because the truth of the matter is that if you shatter the fishbowl so that everything is possible, you don't have freedom, you have paralysis. If you shatter this fishbowl so that everything is possible, you decrease satisfaction. You increase paralysis and you decrease satisfaction. Everybody needs a fishbowl. This one is almost certainly too limited, perhaps even for the fish, certainly for us. But the absence of some metaphorical fishbowl is a recipe for misery and, I suspect, disaster.
Alongside life in general, Mark also talked about the things that we actually need to care about in a relationship and what not to, since this is such a decisive factor that determines the quality of our life. One of the problems is, as he discusses in the book, that we can get a little bit confused over what our problems are. That is, what problems are out of our reach in a relationship, and what are each other's problems that the other does not have control over, therefore shouldn't care about. When my problems are confused with their problems, that's when issues start to occur. One may always feel tired for having to continuously solve all the problems in a relationship as well as for their partner, whilst the other always feels that their partner isn't doing enough for them. Mark tells us that the problem of this roots back to being unclear of our own boundaries. If we don't know where our boundaries are, we will always feel obliged to solve problems for our lover, or demand our other half to solve our problems continuously. Notwithstanding, as the giver in a relationship, you don't have to take responsibility for every single problem the other person has. For the victim, the love your other half has for you does not only have to be expressed by solving problems for you. Both parties should take responsibility for their own problems, while knowing that their relationship is not built on solving as many problems they can for the other person, and their needs cannot be met 24/7. It's not to say that we cannot be helped or help our significant other. Rather, as Mark says, acts of love are valid only if they are performed without conditions or expectations. And if our partner is willing to help, it's that they're willing to help, not that they're obligated to do so. And yes, as the title of the last chapter of this book says, we all die. Staring into the face of death, you would know what this book is trying to tell us. You can have your own opinion on this if you had read this book before, but here's how I see it. Because life's too short, it makes our time extremely valuable and only enough to spend on what really matters. Instead, a lot of us still choose to follow crappy, uncontrollable, and superficial beliefs, mindsets, and values for our own benefits. Albeit, I'm not here to say to you, now this is what matters, this is what you should care about, and these are negligible and unimportant. I have my own life to live, and so do you. The only thing I want to leave you with by the end of this video is, with death in mind, and knowing that our lives probably ending sooner than we thought, what are the things that really matter to you? What do you love? What do you find meaningful? What are the things that you're willing to sacrifice for the sake of love, meaning, and fulfillment? When we know our values, boundaries, and priorities, we will come to understand the meaning of our own lives, and that there's nothing holding us back in pursuing them. And that's it for today. I hope you found this video helpful, as all the rest of my videos are, and think that I did a decent job at coming up with a summary for this book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. What are the things you care about that others don't? Or are there things that you care about but you don't think you should? I really want to know, so please share with me in the comment section below. Again, I hope this video was helpful in one way or another. Have a nice rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.